Hello everyone, my name is Steven, and today the topic that I'm going to be talking to you about is minimum wage. Over the years, the U.S. minimum wage has changed quite a bit, and it plays an important role in our economy. The main claim that I'm refuting today is that raising minimum wage would have a positive effect on the economy. The secondary claims that are that the minimum wage increases would strengthen the economy, increasing minimum wage will not increase unemployment, and that raising minimum wage will decrease the country's poverty. In response to the first secondary claim, which was that minimum wage would strengthen the economy, my advocate attempted to support this claim with the evidence that 3 out of 5 business owners support a gradual increase in the minimum wage. The problem with this data is that there is no significant sample size. We don't know how many businesses were actually surveyed. So it could have been 50 businesses, or it could have actually been just 5. This is a problem because it challenges the validity of the claim. Also, this was the only source of evidence given in support of this claim. And since this data was inconclusive due to an unclear sample size, there was no good evidence, and it's because of this, they should reject the fact that a higher minimum wage would strengthen the economy. In response to the secondary claim, which is that increasing minimum wage will not increase unemployment, my advocate supported her claim with the evidence that a professor believes that an increased minimum wage will lead to less turnover, and also a letter to the president by over 600 economists, including 7 Nobel Prize winners, saying that increasing minimum wage will not have a negative effect on job growth. And although both sources contain accredited testimony from reliable sources, neither provide any statistical data to back it up. So the only conclusions the audience can make are based on inferences created by the sources provided. And to counter this claim, I'm stating that raising the minimum wage will cause an increase in unemployment. On March 30, 2014, Ben Gates published an article stating that, in total, 747,700 people were unemployed in 2013 because of high state minimum wages. The rise in unemployment ranged from 2,600 in Maine to 206,700 in California. This shows that if the minimum wage is too high, then there can be negative effects on employment, and my advocate's claim can be rejected because of this and a lack of sufficient evidence. And lastly, in response to the third secondary claim, which was that raising minimum wage will reduce the country's poverty, my advocate supported her claim with a study which concluded that a 39% increase in minimum wage would immediately reduce the poverty rate in America by 1.7%, and over time this would go to 2.5%. That's 4.6 million people lifted out of poverty immediately, and 6.8 million over time. The problem with this is that it is unclear on exactly how long these changes would actually take. There is no way for the audience to know how long is meant by immediately or over time. These numbers are necessary in determining whether or not it would be worth it to raise the minimum wage. To counter this claim, I will make the claim that raising minimum wage will increase the country's poverty. In June 27, 2009, Joel Mesa published an article which shows that minimum wage has increased over $6 from 1955 to 2009, and the value of the US dollar has decreased by about $7 over that period of time. This shows a direct correlation between the value of the dollar and minimum wage, and from it we can conclude that raising minimum wage will cause a decrease in the value of our money, and in turn will cause an increase in the poverty of the US. So because of this and the vague evidence presented, we must reject the claim that was placed. In conclusion, based on the refutation provided and inadequate evidence given in support of my advocate's claims, the claim that raising the minimum wage would have a positive effect on the economy should not be accepted.
All right, structurally, it's very easy to follow. On the first point, your challenge to the evidence is, I think, a little bit of a thin press. I think it would be helpful to have some information that suggests that there are substantial parts of the economy that would have a hard time handling an increase in minimum wage. You basically says, well, we don't know whether or not this is a sample that's based on 5 industries or 500,000 industries. And like I said, I think that that's a reasonable press to make, but one of the arguments that I think is missing is, well, some industries might be able to afford it, but it's the ones who can't afford it that are going to have the problems with it. So I'm glad that 3/5 of them can afford it, but that means that 2/5 of them, which employ apparently a lot of people, are going to have difficulty. 40% is a pretty substantial number. I think that that would probably be a clearer argument. On your second point, I think the point that you're making at the beginning says, since there's no statistical data that's being presented, we're simply being asked to accept the authority of 600 people, including 7 Nobel Prize winners, who say that this is not going to be the case. And that there's a problem with accepting that authority without some statistical data backing it up. And then your argument is that research that does include statistics suggests that the minimum wage has already suppressed a number of jobs, and increasing it would produce an increased loss of jobs. I think that second argument needed a little bit more information on it. The first argument was pretty well demonstrated, and I thought you did a good job on that point. And then the issue of poverty, it comes down to this. I think your press on this is a little thin. We don't know what immediate means or over time. I think that's the thinnest of your arguments on that one. It really feels a little bit vague. I think there's an interesting point that says, when you increase the minimum wage, it decreases the power or the value of the dollar, and that means, in essence, that people are going to have a harder time making ends meet. There's potential inflation that goes on there. I think there's a correlational argument that's being made. I'm not sure is very complete, and I think that you probably need a little bit more information on that point. But it was clear and easy to follow. You explained what your points were. You cited evidence pretty clearly. I do think that you needed to talk about some of the evidence that the advocate was using in a little bit broader terms than just kind of those cheap presses. All right, thank you.